This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. Today we're doing an interview for a. Oh my goodness. We're doing an interview for a resource English teacher teaching position, and we are joined today with Ms. Coe, and she will be interviewing for the position. I do hear some echo. If we can fix that. Okay. So let's start with introductions. I'm Mr. Wheeler, the high school principal.
I'm Tracy Bryant, the educational diagnostician.
Teresa Britt, special ed counselor.
Hi, I'm Christy Coe, and I'm interviewing for your SPED position.
Okay, great to meet you and get to learn a little bit about you. I did receive your resume. So we will just go in round robin style. We do have a list of questions that we will be asking. At any time, if you need some clarification on the questions, just stop us and we'll give you that clarification. So first, I would just like to ask, I'll be the first to ask, just tell us about a little bit about yourself, your educational background and professional experiences.
Okay. Well, I am Christy Coe, and I am in the process of relocating to Center, Texas. My husband have got a job, and so we are moving here. I went to Texas Women's University, and I have been working in education for 8 years, and in the special education capacity as a behavior teacher, as a resource teacher. I also taught 4th grade at language arts for 2 years as well. And I'm here, wanting to talk more about what you have going on in Center.
Okay, well, that's awesome. I do think that's some great professional experience that you do have. Ms. Bryant, would you like to ask the next question?
Yes, sir. Ms. Coe, what made you choose to want to work with children that have disabilities versus your general ed kids?
Okay. Well, first I want to say before I became a teacher in special education, I was a mother of a kid with disabilities. He is intellectually disabled and has some other neurological things going on, as well as speech. So working with him and working closely with his teachers and therapists throughout the years, just my heart just had a calling for it, to work with kids to help them advocate for themselves, show them a different way of learning, because they can learn it, just learning differently, and what that looks like, and being a supportive adult in their life to help them, see what all they can accomplish and what they can do in life.
Okay, that's great to see that you do have a passion for special education and for students with disabilities. Miss Britt, would you please ask the next question?
Sure. What special skills or strengths can you contribute as a special ed teacher?
Well, I bring the knowledge of being a parent of a special needs student. So that helps with having the empathy and understanding where parents are coming from with some of those harder meetings, and kind of also teaching parents, where their child is developmentally, where they're going and what their future can hold. So I can bring that piece in to really help work with parents, because I understand what it's like as a parent. But also in my previous positions, I was a SPED team lead. We had a special education team of 25, and I was responsible for attending monthly meetings with our attorneys to understand what's going on in special education, any sort of difficult ARDs that might have been happening, what we learned from them as a district. I was responsible for taking all that information out, as well as any training that we received back to my team, and meeting with them after a meeting to discuss what was said, what we learned, any new procedures that came from it or protocols. I also was responsible for building the special education master schedule for our team, as well as training any new teachers that we onboarded in special education on my campus.
Thank you. That's
Also,
great experience.
Behavior lead in our district. So we have a program for behavior kids, for students who require that additional support and social skills. So anytime we implemented the program on a new campus, and we have 26 campuses, I was one of the few trainers that would go and open up a campus and get the program up and going, and making sure all staff members understood what they needed to do to be successful.
Okay, well that's fantastic, and I really like what you've said about helping parents and teaching parents and working with parents, because at our campus we want to make sure that we're in constant communication with our parents, not just when there's issues or problems, but also to share achievements and accomplishments of our students with our parents. And so as principal, I have the expectation that we reach out weekly to parents and just let them know, what's going on in the classroom. And so that's great to hear that you've already been doing that at your previous district and your previous occupation.
Yes, as a parent, it's hard to not hear any feedback on your student, and then you come to ARD and there's like a list of things that aren't going well that you didn't know anything about. And so that's been a struggle of mine as a parent. So I've always wanted to make sure that I have communication with parents throughout the year, whether it's positive, negative. I try to, for every negative, to have 5 positives to talk to them about their student.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that we have all of that stakeholder input to make sure that our students are successful, and parents are the critical piece that is missing in some districts. And so here at Center ISD, we make sure that parents are included as a critical part of that process for student achievement. My next question is, what do you feel is the biggest challenge or reward in working with students with disabilities?
I would say the biggest challenge for me is I get extremely involved emotionally, as well as just very passionate about students and advocating for them. So sometimes that's hard to leave at work and can sometimes go home with me. But because I'm so passionate, I find that's also a strength, because I know what these students are capable of. And so being there for them when the days are hard, and making sure that we're really celebrating all of those milestones, even the littlest ones. So I feel like even though my passion is a strength of mine, that is challenging with how involved emotionally I can get with my families.
Yes, and I believe that is critical to try to find an appropriate balance there, but that is difficult, because working with special education and in education in general requires a heart for the profession, and so it does take some support groups. So like we're all a team here at Center ISD and on the high school campus, and so we lean on each other for support. So we have support here for you if you were to get this position. And so I just wanted to let you know that. Ms. Bryant, would you like to ask the next question?
Yes, sir. So, Ms. Coe, what is an area you feel you need to grow in, or you would like more training in?
I have not worked at a high school campus before. My years have always been in the elementary. So I feel like I could have a lot of growth in the area of working with older kids, um, and what supports are available to them, what's available to them in the community, credits. What do they need as far as graduating? So I feel like that's an area of growth for me. In an area I could utilize some training in with working with kids from high school and transitioning them to that 18 plus services.
What's
Yeah.
the highest level you've been up to?
5th grade.
5th?
Mhm.
And I think, so at the high school, we have participation, of course, from the special education teacher. So if you were hired as a resource English teacher, you would be participating in those meetings. We get your input for how the student's doing in your class, but also we discuss credits. We discuss transition plans. And so by attending multiple ARDs a year and also having the diagnostician, Ms. Bryant, as a resource, I believe that would be a way for you to learn those types of things throughout the school year. Ms. Britt. Ms. Britt, you're muted.
Tell me a time when you were not pleased with your work situation.
Are you meaning with my job, like with the actual job that I had, or just with my work, like what work I brought to what I did?
Ms. Britt, you're muted again.
A time in your work career that you were not happy with your job situation.
Okay. I had a principal a couple of years ago who I found to be very difficult to work with. She did not have a special education background and didn't have a lot of training with it. So anytime we had a difficult case or a student that might have been struggling academically, it was really hard working with her on accommodations and what would make the student more successful in the classroom. But luckily we had a very strong special education director that sat in on the meetings and helped, facilitate some conversations to help bring the teacher along. But it was a very difficult situation, but I had to rely on my team to continue helping those conversations and continue advocating for the student.
And I would just like to say, as principal here, I'm proactive rather than reactive to the situation. And so I hate to hear that you had that experience. And so, but we would make sure, just like with communication with parents, for any kind of situation where there needs to be something addressed, that we would address it as soon as possible. And at the lowest level possible in order to get it resolved as quickly as possible.
Great.
So this is the next question. Are you an arrive early or stay late person?
Well, currently in my life, I am in neither. I like to manage my time wisely throughout the day, so that I would say I'm at school a good maybe 10 to 15 minutes prior to contract. But when my contract is up, I pack up and I go home to my family. One of the things that I've learned over the years, because taking home my caseload is something that I've done. It helps me to leave and go home and spend as much time with my family and spend time with my son. And then when he gets himself, we get him to bed at night. That's my time to kind of reflect on the day and any last minute paperwork that I might need for an upcoming meeting, or any notes I need to cover or anything like that. I'll utilize that in the evening. But I, during the day, like to manage my time so I can get to school on contract, and I try to leave on contract. Now, there are extenuating circumstances. I understand that, and I will, always dig in and roll my sleeves up and get whatever needs to get done. But on average, I work within my contract hours.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us. I believe that kind of goes back to just finding that work-life balance that works for you. And so the only expectation is that you get your work done and that you're here during contract time. And so that sounds like what you've been doing. And so and then leaning on your coworkers as well would be a way of support. So I think you're demonstrating a good life work balance. So that's good to hear. Ms. Bryant.
Okay. How well do you work with others? I know you've talked about your team a good bit, so I'm assuming you work well with others. Are you flexible? I know that was one of my, that was a hard lesson for myself to learn, was being flexible, because I'm kind of a rigid person, per se. So how are you at being flexible when things change? Because in SPED world, it changes all the time.
So yes, in SPED world, it changes all the time. I would consider myself a type B personality. I like to make sure that one of the things that I like is having a team to collaborate with. So doing that, when you bring in other people's backgrounds and you bring in other people, how they do things, and you collaborate on a student, things are going to change because you have to stop and really listen to what they're bringing to the table. I mean, because you did ask for their input. I did ask for their input. So I would have to have a flexible mindset to be able to take in and figure out what's going to be working, what would work best for this student. Because I don't have all the answers, but I do rely heavily on a team, and I like working on a cohesive team. And that requires having some flexibility in the way I think, and also some of my philosophies as well. If the end goal is what's going to make a student successful, I feel like I can be very flexible in my thinking. Now, there are things that I have some hard nose on and that I'm passionate about, but I definitely sometimes just want to be heard and understood why I may make some choices that I make. But I think if we all come together as adults, knowing that our main goal is what's best for a student, and make sure that adult problems don't become student problems, I feel like that we're all coming together and it'll be a positive experience.
How would you manage paraprofessionals that were assigned to you in the classroom?
Well, I have a paraprofessional binder that I put together that has our schedules, has the students that we track with, their accommodations, what their goals are, and how we're going to progress monitor those goals, as well as their duties, whether daily, weekly, and monthly. Sit down and talk about the expectations of getting to work on time and what needs to get done while we're here. But because I feel like if I am if I communicate, I'm trying to think of a word that is it's leaving me right now, so I'll come back to it. I'm sure it'll pop in when I don't need it. But if I'm very explicit in what I need and what our students need to be successful and what this paraprofessional needs to be successful, they'll know what to do. They can only do so much, right? And so a lot of it is how me modeling, as well as being very explicit in what the duties are to be successful during the workday.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I really like that because I was a former life skills teacher before I was a principal, and I had 3 paraprofessionals that worked for me, and I had to set expectations for what I expected, but also, for what was expected of them, because we had like 15 students, and some of them had, severe, profound disabilities, and so I had to determine, who was responsible for which students at what time and who would take students out. And so that alleviated a lot of confusion. So I really do like that answer that you did give. How would you describe your relationship with parents and coworkers? You've kind of described it already. And then the follow-up is, how would they describe their relationship with you?
Okay. I feel like I've got a really strong relationship with my parents and with my coworkers, because without those, it's hard to be here for the students. With parents, I communicate often. I communicate, like I said earlier, for every negative thing I may need to talk to their student about, I make sure to have, I've contacted them 5 other times regarding some celebrations or some positives, whether it's through email or text or call. And with my coworkers, I feel like I have a really strong relationship with my coworkers. Feel that it's an honest 2-way road where we can really talk about like what's going on. It's a hard job, and so it's nice to have people that you can rely on and vent with, and be there for each other emotionally. So I feel like I have a really good relationship with them. I would think that they would say the same thing. I have a lot of parents that after, their student has moved on and that have requested to follow me on Facebook, who still send me cards, nice emails and things of that nature. So my relationship with those parents is still going on, even though I no longer service their student. So I feel like I have built those strong relationships that we still have them.
Okay, great. Ms. Bryant?
Yes, sir. What experience do you have dealing with concerned or frustrated parents? That's a sticky situation.
Okay. I did have an experience where we almost went to due process, but that kind of went back to the principal situation that I spoke about earlier. And the parents were really frustrated with what was happening on the academic side of things at the school, and was creating a lot of anxiety, and the students started to withdraw a little bit. So we had several meetings that we had to dig in deep and get very creative on helping the student. At that point, it was really just getting him to want to come to school. So trying to alleviate some stress and get him to kind of work with his frontal lobe of his brain, and help him feel safe at school. And we fostered in some good relationships and worked with him on coping skills. And through that, working really closely with the parents and communicating with them, and being honest with them of where their student is. So sometimes as parents, we feel like our kids are capable of more, which is great, but we really sometimes need to take a step back and be honest and know where we need to meet our students and help them grow to where our expectations are. So that just with that experience, it just made me realize how important communication is, both on the admin side of things, but also with the parents, and really try to bridge those 2 areas.
What is your philosophy on discipline management?
I love and I am very passionate about positive discipline, making sure that I focus on the positives that you can get out of being and doing what you need to be doing versus just the negatives. So a lot of that is earning rewards. It's just really focused on the praise, on the positive, because when people are praising us and we're earning and we're staying positive, we want to work harder, we want to do more. And I believe that for kids as well.
I agree.
And here at Center High School, that's what we do focus on, is positive behavioral supports, and on reinforcing positive behavior rather than punishment and punitive things like that. So That does occur at times, discipline does occur, but we focus on the positive in order to help build those skills within the student so that they can not only be successful in the school environment, but when they leave the school building. And speaking of your discipline management, how do you, what's your classroom management style like?
Okay. Well, in a resource setting, if I have, a few students at a time, bring them to my horseshoe table, and I use a dry erase marker and I put tally marks in front of where they're sitting. But I make sure to tell them every time I give them a tally mark, like, I like how you're reading that. I like how you're sitting and listening. I like how you answered that question, and really telling them explicitly what I'm seeing, the positives, and giving them the tally marks. And so they're working to get 25 by the end of the week. And so they can get an individual reward, but then if everyone gets 25, then the whole class gets something too. So really focusing on the individual aspect of it, and growing them individually on those skills that they need to be successful in the classroom, but also growing them as working together as a team and encouraging each other and bringing in that team building. And when they all get that, we can all celebrate in a different way.
Yeah, I really like that because you're providing frequent feedback to the student, and you're also collaborating with the student in order to find successful avenues. And so as principal, I also do the same thing with my teachers as well. And so when I come into the room, it's going to be frequently that I come in, and it's not a gotcha moment. It's a time to help collaborate with you and problem solve. And I'll be asking you, like, what do you think might be the solution? Once I see what's occurring in the classroom, and give you ownership of that process. And I believe that's a critical piece of for success, not only for our students, but for everyone, including myself as well. Ms. Bryant?
Are you currently certified in CPI or nonviolent, any kind of intervention, crisis intervention?
Yes, I'm currently certified in CPI, and I really do love their de-escalation strategies. I also have been certified in SAMA in the past, and utilize the SAMA de-escalation strategy a lot as well.
That's great. Tell me how you assess and evaluate student progress.
So weekly, at least once a week, I pull them and work on IEP goals. So I get my progress monitoring that way and get my data and make sure that I track it weekly so I can see what skills the students doing well, and maybe a skill that's not growing, and then go back and reteach, and we work some other ways to on those skills that will help them grow in other areas. If I've come across, I'll be honest with you, several times where I had a student who was struggling with growing and reading. So I had to reach out I called a meeting with a dyslexia teacher, a reading interventionist teacher, showed them what I had, and got some really good things to try to see if we can't find another way that the student may learn that I wasn't able to, think of right off the bat.
That's great.
What system do you have in place for differentiating instruction?
Well, what I do is I get to know the student, so building relationship with them so that they feel safe and comfortable in working with me and really showing me what they know. And then based on that, scaffolding in some different things, strategies that might work for them. So I may be working on the same skill with all the students, but it's going to look a little different for each one depending on where they are. So one may need more visuals. One may need just choose between two answers, and one may need all the right answer given to them and how to use it in the right sentence the correct way. So it's just knowing where the students are and making sure that I'm meeting them where they are and helping them grow.
Okay, great. So you scaffold in supports that they need to be successful while working on the same skills across for all students. So I do
Yeah.
like that.
You discussed a while ago about student progress and tracking. How do you monitor and how do you organize that tracking system for IEP goals and documentation of that?
Okay, I have a binder, and in this binder, I have their goals, and then I have progress monitoring sheets. So if their goal is around, say, trials, then I'll set up a box with however many trials, like 10 trials, and anytime they get it right, I put a check mark and the date. If we're successful, I put an X and the date, and that way when I go back to count out the trials, I can see how often we were successful in that area. But really just that binder is my Bible. It really helps me understand where the students are. And anytime I have a meeting, I can bring that with me and really discuss where the kids are in their goals and where they need to be. And there's been several times that we have been successful and we've mastered a goal early on. So having to call a revision hard, which my diags love, but to have a new goal, but really make sure that we have a huge celebration around the student mastering a goal. And I've also had the, by keeping that data and progress monitoring, we've also had the time we've noticed that the student wasn't making progress. And so we going back to the drawing board and what's a goal that the student would be successful at. Instead of waiting 9 weeks when report cards come out to see that they're not progressing. That's why I do it weekly, so that I can see in 3 weeks, okay, we're really chugging along. Things are going really well. Or, you know what, we've been working on this for 3 weeks and we're not making nothing's happening. So really, that's when you call in those other people and, trial some things and let's give it, try that for a couple more weeks. And then if we're not making progress then, after making some changes, then really going back to drawing board and what skill is missing because this one's not working. And going back and reevaluating that FIE and looking at the data there to see what did we miss here.
Yeah, I really like that. Just that continual checking of the goals and addressing that any kind of where they're not meeting. That is the legal requirement, but also that is good to see that you have been doing that and coming in, that you have the experience to know how to properly track goals. Do you have experience as well in writing goals, SMART goals for students?
Yes. So in my current district, as tracking teachers, we have a caseload and we're responsible for the PLAFs, the goals, the accommodations, and the schedule of services. And we use a program, eSped.
Okay, that was my follow-up. If you did, which program did you use for special education for the IEP? Okay, and that's actually what we use is eSped, Frontline eSped.
Great.
Okay, Ms. Britt.
What is your experience in creating and implementing visual schedules?
I have a lot of experience with that. I've worked with a lot of students on the spectrum with an autism disorder. I've also have students who aren't, but have some serious ADHD and need help tracking their day. I've had students where they needed it like step by step, almost like a task analysis. And then I have students who just need to know first period, second period, that way. So I have a lot of experience with visual schedules. I feel like the more visual a classroom is, it's important, I think, in classroom management to make sure that you've got a daily schedule all the time up on the board, that you have, anytime anyone walks in, they know exactly what's happening in your room. And because that goes for the kids, that alleviates a lot of anxiety for them, is they know what's expected of them. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They know what's going on at that time. Then I also like to keep a calendar on the wall with any dates that are upcoming or any schedule changes that we know about, so that we can start talking about them, any changes that may be that, hey, don't forget Friday, this is changing. This is what it's going to look like. Remember Friday, we've got to change in your schedule, so that just when Friday comes, they know it's not a surprise, and that alleviates a lot of anxiety for them.
Yeah, and as a former life skills teacher, I know that those transition periods are times where students can need that additional support. So that visual schedule is not only important, but critical for those kids.
Right.
The last question that I have for you, Ms. Coe, is do you have any questions for us?
So could you tell me more about the position that you have available and what your expectations are for that teacher?
So we have a high school resource English teacher position available. You would be teaching students there's English 1 through 4. You would be teaching those students for English 1 through 4. There's also part of what your role would be also teaching some English for some life skills students as well. Not all of the life skills students, not for all classes, but just for the English specifically. So that's the position we're looking to fill. For the English position, we're looking at generally less than 10 kids in those classes. And so you would have a smaller group setting. And then also we do have resources available, curriculum resources available, such as Read 180 and System 44. Are you familiar with either of those?
Yes, I'm familiar with System 44.
Okay, so that's what we are using currently. The current teacher that just left was using was System 44 and Read 180. And so that would be kind of what you would be coming into. Ms. Coe, are you still there?
Meeting is being recorded.
Sorry.
It's okay. Did you hear the last part of what I was saying?
I didn't. Could you repeat that, please?
Okay. So the former teacher that was here was using a System 44 and Read 180. And so that's where we would kind of the expectation would be from me for you to kind of start with that system, and then to kind of see where your students were performing, and then kind of work from there.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, I'm currently certified EC through 6. I have my ESL certification. I also have my SPED EC through 12. And I actually have been thinking about getting my language arts 7 through 12. Is that a certification that I need to get? Because even though these are special education classes, do I need to get the content area certification?
Yes, to be highly qualified, we need to make sure that you have not only the special education certification. One moment, the bell's ringing. But also that you have certification in the content area for which you will be teaching. And so you would need the English language arts 7 through 12. So we would add that to your contract, that you could be in the process of completing that if you were to get the position. So you could work on getting that as well. Do you have any other questions for the committee?
I do. I'm sorry. I just, tell me about your onboarding process for new to district teachers. I'm not new to teaching or new to profession, but what is the onboarding process for new to district with the district and also as in the special education area?
When you come to our district, we do require, of course, all the traditional paperwork to be completed. But once you do complete that, there are 18 hours of a professional development that you complete through a system called EduHero. And that's just like you probably already completed it before at your previous district, but it's like bloodborne pathogens, sexual harassment training. This is state mandated trainings that all employees have to complete, whether you come at the beginning of the year or mid-year. And so because this position would be opening up in January. And so that would be kind of the process for that. Of course, you would also need to get a badge at central administration,
Okay.
and then complete additional HR human resource paperwork with our Director of Human Resources, Ms. Mickish, as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, or is?
No, it sounds like you guys, it sounds like y'all really have the right things happening there. It sounds like it's a real positive environment that I would love to join if you feel like I'm a good fit for your district.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. And committee, I'd ask for y'all to stay on. But Ms. Coe, thank you so much for joining us, and I will be in contact with you and probably the next by next Friday, I will let you know something. Give you further update on this position. But thank you, Ms. Coe, for joining us today and for interviewing with Center ISD.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Nice
Bye.
meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, committee. So what did you think about Ms. Coe and her interview for the English position?
I thought she did really well. I like the experience she has, even though it's not at the high school level. I like how much she's done with behaviors because, as we know, a lot of times kids that are in special ed, they have, because of their gaps they have in education or because of problems that they have, like an emotional disturbance, they have those behavioral components as well. I feel like she would be a good person for that.
Yes, I like the way she used positive reinforcement and has it already built into her classroom strategies. I also really like the way that she's been a team lead before at her other district, and she's able to also talk with other teachers and teach them the strategies that she uses.
Okay. Did you think that her answers reflected knowledge and thought and common sense, that she answered all the questions the way that we needed her to answer those questions?
I thought she did. And I liked that she talked about her son. So I think she has that personal element too with dealing with parents, with that, but when it becomes personal to her, I think you have more common sense with it because you're in that position yourself with it as a parent. So she's seen both sides. So I felt like she had a good bit of knowledge and common sense.
I
And you
agree.
as well, Ms. Britt.
I agree.
And did she seem to be informed about current educational, social, and economic issues? Did she seem to be, did she seem to be, updated with the latest updates for special education in y'all's mind?
Yes, I think so. I like that she's already CPI certified. That's really great. And she's used our program, eSped, before for her paperwork. I think that's a plus. And I think she's had some good experiences and trainings that will help us as a district.
I agree.
And did she
Mention
discipline?
that SOMA or whatever, which I guess is
Yeah.
another form of CPI.
Mhm.
Did she display a willingness and ability to originate new ideas and solutions to problems? Did y'all think she did that?
Yes, I like the way that she talked about reaching out to other specialists to help students when they're not making progress on their goals.
Yeah. Like that she said she reached out to the dyslexia teacher.
Yes,
I liked that too. That tells you she doesn't know everything herself and doesn't mind asking somebody for help if she doesn't.
yes, I liked that.
Yes.
Did she seem to appear calm and be able to handle pressure to y'all?
I thought she did. She didn't seem to sweat the questions. She didn't seem to even be nervous, to answer the questions. And when she couldn't think of the word, she was like, well, it'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah, I really saw that as well. And Ms. Bryan, I think I agree with you as far as I don't think it's really a negative that she doesn't have high school experience because she has a lot of experience at the lower levels, and our special education population that she would be working with are at least 2 grade levels below high school level, especially our 9th graders. So she has experience with those types of students. She also demonstrates team teacher leadership. And so I believe that she would be a good candidate for us to consider moving forward. So that's all that we have. That's our only interview for today. We'll do another interview. We do have one more applicant. We'll do that one tomorrow. Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. And y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.